Hello, hello, and welcome to another show that we're bringing you today from our deconditioning series. If you're joining us live, hello and welcome. We are so excited to have you here. Please do interact with us in the chat. That's why we love doing these live. If you have any questions, any insights, please do send them your thoughts in our comment section, and we are going to respond to you. And if you've been paying attention to our channel or our Instagram page, you will know today we are going to be introducing hypnotherapy as a way to help you in your deconditioning process. And it's super exciting since I've been playing around with hypnosis for forever now, but it's much better when you're working with a professional. So we have a professional who knows not only what she's doing, she's excellent at what she does, and she uses human design and intertwines it into this absolutely powerful, magical tool to help you unblock all the things that have been keeping you stuck in your conditioning. So, without further ado, let's bring out the wonderful, the magical Sophie. Hello.
Hello, coming to you all the way from Thailand. It's nice to be here. I'm really excited to have this chat with you.
Right. We have not given anyone any context. So Sophie, I've known about Sophie for I don't know how long, but pretty early in my
Yeah.
HD experiment. Is it a year? And she just has this magical course on HD and parenting. So that's how I found Sophie. But of course, she does hypnotherapy and all the other things, which Sophie, you can tell us about. So, tell us all about what you do and where we can find you before I start prodding you for some answers.
Sure, I'd love to. So, I'm originally from the UK, in case you can't tell by my accent. Some people think I'm Australian. I live in Thailand and have done for the last, I don't know, I have done for the last 8 years. I have a 3-year-old son. So, Moana and I have kids of similar ages. And I've been using human design. I've been a hypnotherapist since, I think, 2015. And I was using human design like personally in my own experiment. And then I started to incorporate it, using it kind of like as a map in my business in 2019, and was doing that professionally here online. And then after I had my son, about a year after I had my son, I was kind of like, oh, I've been working with all these people for years and helping them to decondition, whether it's just through hypnotherapy or hypnotherapy and human design. And most of the time, like 9 times out of 10, the repeating patterns, the limiting beliefs that people have are rooted in their childhood, are rooted in the first 7 years of life, right? Because that's kind of just, it's so important. It's like when kids are sponges. And I was like, well, I could just help parents not condition their kids in the first place. So I kind of pivoted into parenting. I've been doing that for the last couple of years. Now I'm also kind of going back a bit more into deconditioning and helping the parents to, decondition basically, because you have to walk the talk as a parent, when you're doing human design. You can't just raise your kids by design if you're not living your own. So really using these tools like hypnotherapy and EFT and NLP to help the parents understand, what's triggering them, where it comes from in their own childhood, the root causes. So they can not only raise their kids by design, but they can stop projecting their own conditioning onto their kids.
That's absolutely magical. I mean, you need to be doing that even if you don't have children, just for just for yourself. So I was going to say, you kind of explained your journey a little bit. You gave us like a high level overview, but I would like to dig a little bit deeper. So for you, I want to know what is the journey that led you to hypnotherapy, and why did you choose hypnotherapy over, I don't know, breath work? Like, what was it that was like, wait, there's something, and then like a aha moment for you when you started working with hypnotherapy?
So for me, I was interested in past lives for a long time, probably since I was like 15. And then when I was 29, like a lot of things happened around my Saturn return. That's when I found human design. When I was 29, I was living in Australia and I started reading books by Brian Weiss, Dr. Brian Weiss. Incredible books, incredible past life regressionist. He used to be psychiatrist, and then he kind of went into the more spiritual aspect. And his books were just mesmerizing. You know, sometimes you just find somebody or you read a book and it just grabs you and you read the whole thing, like cover to cover. And lo and behold, a couple of months later, he happened to be in Australia doing a big seminar. So I went to his seminar with one of my friends that I reconnected with. There's a lot of synchronicities, and I just had this amazing, like I was in a big audience in a big kind of theater. But even just the little demonstration he had, I had such a deep and moving experience that it just captured me. And it really it gave me that confirmation. I don't think you can necessarily say evidence, but it gave me that confirmation that for me, you know, past lives were real. And it just blew my mind that my subconscious held on to so much information. You know, this is like going back like past lives. So what does it have about, you know, just my since I've been born in this life? And the more then I started to look into it, and I then, you know, saw a couple of other past life regressionists, I just became really fascinated by how much depth is below the surface that we are not aware of. You know, for people that don't know, basically our conscious mind, what we're operating on, is only about 10%. It's like an iceberg, right? So you've got the tip of the iceberg as your conscious mind. There's all this stuff below the surface. And I just became really fascinated with that, kind of almost like, you know, the mystery. And then I didn't necessarily think about training in it professionally. It was just kind of something that, you know, really appealed to me, something I was curious about, that I dipped into every now and then. And then I was here in Phuket. I think it was 2014 or 2015, and the meditation teacher wasn't there, and they asked me to like substitute a class. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done a meditation class. And so what I decided to do was an evening class, and I was like, I know what I'm going to do for people. I'm going to read them a bedtime story. And I'd been doing something before called bibliotherapy, which is like when you read a book and you identify with the character and it helps you through a process. And I was like, I'm just going to read them an inspirational bedtime story. They're all here at this wellness resort to make some changes. So I started reading some paragraphs from The Alchemist. And the feedback after I love it. One of my favorite books. Obviously, I didn't finish the whole book. I just kind of, you know, they wanted more. But the feedback that I got wasn't so much about the content of the story, but about my voice. And when I was reading it, like when I'm doing hypnotherapy, I have a slightly different, I guess, like essence or quality to my voice. You know, like you have a telephone voice as well, which is nice and polite. And, you know, I think we have such incredible potential to kind of like shift and change our voice. And it blew me away because for a long, long time, I'd hated my voice. I'm a manifestor, right?
You have a stunning voice. So what are you talking about? But anyways.
Again, this was due to conditioning, right? You know, when I was reading aloud in school, I think I was talking a lot. I got told to stop talking. And so I did stop talking when I was young. I had to have speech therapy.
Yeah, same. What age did you start talking? Like as a child?
I can't remember when I started talking, like probably around 18 months or something like that. I don't think there was a delay with that.
I had a crazy delay. I don't think I spoke till like almost close to age 4.
Whoa.
Yeah, you know, I didn't have girls are seen, not heard.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I don't think I had a delay in speaking initially, but then it was just like most of my conditioning that I am aware of is really come from school, not so much from my parents. But yeah, I said like I stopped speaking at school because I was told to stop speaking, and again I was trying to be a good girl, you know, and I had to have speech therapy, and then after that I hated when I was like I don't know about, you know, if this was kind of routine like around the world, but in the UK in school, you know, you had your book and you had to go around the class and everybody had to read a couple of sentences from the book, and I just hated it.
Mm-hmm. And it's not even just English class. They made you do it for French, for Spanish, or everyone took a turn. It's just a way to get everyone to participate. Ugh.
And I really didn't like it. And then I would like cringe every time I heard my voice on like a answering machine, like a phone recording or something. I hated public speaking. I hated like anything where I had to get up and do a presentation. And so even, you know, a couple of decades later, and I was getting this feedback about my voice, it was really strange to me. Even now, when you've just said that to me, I still kind of go,
you still like feel the tinge, right? Like,
a little bit, like from an inner child perspective, I don't, and it kind of like I can accept it, but there's still like this little part inside that's like, really, you know, why would you say that? But I've had such consistent feedback about my voice over the last, 7, 8 years that I do, now appreciate that. But it took a long time for me to kind of really understand that. I'm like, why are people saying this? Like, what are they hearing that I'm not hearing? And so it kind of started there, in the sense that, like, yeah, I was like, oh, okay, all these people are saying this thing about my voice. Maybe I have a certain quality to my voice. And then I think somebody maybe suggested, like, maybe I do hypnotherapy. And so I actually initially trained in quantum healing hypnotherapy, which is like a really intense past life regression.
Mm-hmm.
That was brilliant. However, it takes about 4 hours per session. And given that my energy is...
I was going to say, most people don't have that attention span.
Yeah.
Or
And so
just fall asleep.
And so I love it, but I was just kind of like, I don't think that I have the sustainable energy
Your
to
voice
kind of
just
do
like
that.
turns into like sand at that point. No, like that's a lot of talking.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can split them into 2-hour sessions, but even that just is quite a lot. And so then I just trained, after I trained in quantum healing hypnotherapy, I just trained in regular hypnotherapy.
Okay, so that answered the aha moment for me. So what I'd like to know, that this is fun, is, so for not everybody is kind of aware of, hypnotherapy. Um, I mean, they are aware, but they don't understand it, is what I'm trying to say, right? Because there's many misconceptions floating around. So why don't you give us a little bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a concise explanation for how it works. Because a lot of people are like, I don't want you like go into my subconscious mind and like mess around. So debunk those for us.
So I think a lot of people, one of the most common misconceptions is that it's mind control, right? Because a lot of people associate hypnotherapy with maybe what they've seen on TV, like stage hypnosis, where people get up on stage and then they're made to do silly things. And so, of course, people are like, that feels vulnerable. People are afraid of that. So I always say, when I'm telling people, look, I'm not going to turn you into a chicken. I'm not going to do anything you don't want to do. You're not going to tell me anything that you don't want to tell me. And so, one of the most important things is that you've got to remember, this is hypnotherapy. It's not, so it's using hypnosis, it's using the principle of hypnosis, but it's for therapeutic purposes. So it is a kind of therapy, right? So it's fully like participatory, like fully, like people go into their fully understanding what they're going to do. They feel safe. I explain everything. So it's not like when you go up on stage, you're like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, and people are laughing at you and stuff like that, right? It's just one-on-one. It's me and the client. So it's really, really important to have like a good rapport and a sense of trust, when you're doing any kind of therapy, but particularly hypnotherapy. I combine it with human design. So I use human design as a map. Whether the client knows about their human design or not doesn't matter, to see where like their core wounds, their triggers, their shadows are, and then like, in conversation with them, kind of what their repeating patterns and limiting beliefs are. And, based on our human design, there are some things that are going to show up based on your type, based on your profile. And then I use hypnotherapy as the tool to work on whatever it is, to reframe a limiting belief into like an empowering belief, empowering pattern. So yeah, I think the main misconception is that it's mind control and that something is going to happen to them, and that, yeah, I'm going to go in and like change something. And like, I would, I work with full ethics, full integrity. I'm never going to do anything that somebody doesn't want to do. If somebody says to me they don't want to go to a certain place, maybe they've told me about a particular childhood wound or trauma, I will not go there without their permission. So it's I do create a very safe container. If anyone is working with anyone, any kind of therapist, you need to have that.
So, I guess to build on that, right, is, so like, what is the process, right? It just like, do you have the little clock that says you are getting sleepy? Like, walk us through the different states that your mind might be going through as you're going under. I mean, I know these things, but again, for our viewers, we're like, tell us.
I think that's another thing as well, that people think they're going to go under, and sometimes people are a bit resistant to hypnotherapy, again, because maybe they don't fully understand it. So it's basically a relaxed but focused state of awareness. People are going to experience that differently. Some people are more susceptible to hypnosis than others. If I have somebody, like I do presentations and classes here, if I have somebody that goes, you're not going to be able to hypnotize me, I can straight away see by their body language. And I was like, well, I'm not going to try, because I have nothing to prove. I'm not trying to prove that I can hypnotize you. But I often do a test when I'm doing like a class here. And it's to do with people, like I get them to kind of stand up and close their eyes and imagine that they're holding a balloon in one hand and a book in the other. And I tell
Oh,
them
I
the book is
love
getting
that
heavier and the balloon
experiment.
is getting lighter. And they kind of, the further then away people's arms are, like this is the balloon and this is the book, then the more susceptible they are to hypnosis. If people's hands haven't really moved, then they're just going to be a little bit more resistant. Everybody can be hypnotized, but it primarily depends as well on your willingness to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to try to do hypnotherapy on someone that doesn't want to do it, or that is like, trying to kind of, again, because of this misconception, they think I can control their mind or something. Like I said, it's a two-way process. So yeah.
Perfect.
But that's
So
sorry, I was going to say the stages that you go through.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. So you're conscious right now.
Yeah, you're conscious. I mean, so
mm-hmm.
you would close your eyes, you have to be, and I'm going to do a demonstration, a little bit later, but you have to be in a relaxed, safe, comfortable place, right? So you can just kind of allow yourself to go into that deep state of relaxation. You have your eyes closed. I'll normally walk you through something to really relax your body, to kind of just get you into the zone. It involves some visuals or some feelings and things like that. And then it's like a very deep state of meditation, like relaxed meditation. It's not really, it's nothing kind of scarier or more strange than that. So anyone that's done any kind of meditation, any kind of relaxation, maybe you've even had a massage and you've had your eyes closed and you've been lying there and feel really relaxed. It's like that. But, I'm talking to you the whole time. So there's this relaxed but focused state of awareness where your subconscious mind becomes open, right? Because you're closing your eyes, you're kind of going into your body. Most of us are so caught up in our mind and not connected to our body. And this is a problem on many levels that, it allows you to drop into your body, it allows you to drop into your subconscious. And then, it's about reprogramming the patterns and the beliefs for more empowering ones. So it's people wake up going, oh, that feels lovely. And also often people kind of go, that wasn't an hour, that was 10 minutes. I'm like, no, that was an hour. So you lose this kind of like sense of time as well. It's a lovely experience.
Right. So because I am an information junkie. So let everyone know, what are the different, I guess, states of awakeness versus like being in a hypnotic state? Like, people might know like, oh, there's like alpha and like beta. Like what is it? And what do they mean?
So you've got like alpha and beta and then theta and gamma. Normally you're in, like, when you're kind of awake and you're concentrating on something, you're really focused, you're in alpha state. Okay, you're really like aware and you're looking at something and you're focused. And then you can drop into beta, which is like a little bit more relaxed. You're still aware of things that are going on. And then when you drop into theta state, that's ideally where somebody wants to be for hypnosis. Okay, when you're dropped into that really relaxed state. And that's, again, often what you're in terms of like meditation, or maybe if you're doing breath work or sound healing or something like that. So you're still awake, you're not asleep. Even if someone does fall asleep during hypnosis, it still works. Like a lot of people ask me that as a question. But you're not up here in your conscious mind. Your brain isn't whizzing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You drop down into this deep relaxation.
It sounds lovely. It probably like whenever I've done it, it feels like when I come out of it, like I had like the most amazing, refreshing nap. It's like, oh, I feel like a new person. This is so nice.
Yeah. And, depending on what somebody's working on, yes, sometimes it can be emotional. Sometimes it can be just really uplifting. Again, it just really depends on the intention of the session and what we're working on.
Amazing. So the next thing that I want to know is, so how has hypnosis actually changed your own beliefs and mindsets, or even, how you conduct yourself on a daily basis?
So I also, prior to certifying in hypnotherapy, I also did neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. And so quite often these are used in combination as well. A lot of hypnotherapists are trained in NLP too. So really becoming aware of just how much we're conditioned. Every person, you're basically walking around as an adult as a set of repeating patterns based on your childhood beliefs and habits. Like I said, right, imagine that there's an iceberg and your mind's an iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg, your conscious mind, is just 5 to 10%. And that's what you're operating on most of the time. But everything that's below the surface, and that's all formed in your early childhood years, your beliefs, your habits, your behaviors, your core ones anyway. And so you're not aware of what's going on. And most people are just reacting based on what's kind of going on underneath. And like I said, there's, unless you kind of consciously, intentionally do some things to connect in with your body, you're just running on your mind all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're just a set of repeating patterns. And so knowing that, I guess knowing it professionally,
Mm-hmm.
it allows me to take a step back and to see people differently. And when I notice really reactive behavior, when people are very triggered, somebody cuts you off in traffic, somebody snaps at you, whatever it might be, most of the time, I'm not perfect, most of the time I can take a step back and kind of go, well, I wonder what happened for them, or I wonder what's gone on, or I wonder if they even know that they have that pattern. So it's allowed me to have more compassion because I have that understanding that most people are not really in the sense of control that they think they are. They're just reactionary. So it allowed me to have a deeper sense of compassion for people. It allowed me to stop taking things personally. Again, if somebody does react towards me, of course, sometimes I will take that on, but a lot of the time I just kind of go, oh, I wonder what's going on for them, or I wonder what happened in their childhood. So I have that kind of questioning. So don't go and ask them that if it's just some random stranger in the supermarket. But,
that would make for a great show, right? Sophie, the hypnotherapist, going and taking on people's conditioning.
I could do that, right? I remember it was a couple of years ago, someone bumped into me in the supermarket here, and he was just kind of like he bumped into me and he was like, oh, and I don't even think I was in the way. And it was just kind of really rude. And I was about to react and I caught myself. It's slowed down my process of, thinking and reacting. I caught myself and I just said to him, are you okay? And he just and went off. But rather than me going, hey, why are you bumping into me? And, reacting back and just having this futile conflict, I just let it go. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that's huge. That's something that's huge then in parenting, in relationships. So it really has just, I'd say, changed everything in my life. Yeah,
oh, that's
just really
amazing.
Yeah.
So that was your experience. So what I would like to know is what happened after you started working with some of your clients that it was like, oh yes, this works. You're one of your loveliest moments of I think we had a breakthrough.
There's loads, but the ones that stick with me, and so one of the reasons I love hypnotherapy is because it's really effective. It can be really easy. You can have the transformation, and especially when I add human design to the mix, you can have this transformation in an hour's session that sometimes through something traditional like talk therapy might take months or even years, because you're going into the root, you're going into the subconscious. So I had one client, this is kind of a funny one. I had one client here. So I work at a lot of wellness resorts here. So people come here to work on their health, their well-being, maybe they've gone through something. And there was a lady here that was told by one of the nutritionists, you really need to eat more protein, you need to have fish. Now she had this deathly phobia of fish. She couldn't even be in the same room as someone eating it, cooking it, nothing, just completely repulsed by it. But she was like, okay, I want to give this a go. I want to try eating fish. So she booked in to do hypnotherapy with me. And she had a conscious awareness that when she was small, maybe 3 or 4, she'd had an experience where a fish had jumped out of a pond. So she did know that. So we went straight into there and worked with that. And when I was regressing her back to that age, it appeared to her, because of how small she was, like this giant shark coming out. Oh. So I just reframed that. I reframed that for her, taking her back to that. Now, imagine that it's just a small fish and it's not going to do you any harm and everything. Did that one session, 1 hour. She was eating fish that evening. So not only was it in the same room, she was eating it.
Wow. That's an amazing turnaround time.
Right. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It depends how, deeply something is rooted. I had another one where I had a client who was in her 40s, and she said she'd been having panic attacks for five years or so since she was in her mid-30s. And again, I got back to the root of that, and I was like, I knew already. I'm like, it's not been since your 30s. There's something else going on, but it was triggered by something. We ended up going back to when she was about 7 years old, and she had this very vivid experience where she woke up and she couldn't see or find either of her parents, and she panicked. And that's where it went back to. And again, we reframed that. I said, your parents coming in, you've woken up in the middle of the night, your parents come in, they hug you, they cuddle you, everything's fine, and you go back to sleep. And then she was fine, no more panic attacks. And again, that's one session.
Yeah, it's just like laser focus of like just finding the thing. It's like, boop, let's take it out. It's not serving you. What's the point of having this? So, what was I going to say now? So now I am going to walk us through the demonstration, but what I'd like you to tell the audience is, what should the audience be, I guess, expecting or looking out for before you show us your lovely demo?
To go into it open-minded, not have any expectations. So one of the biggest things that would block somebody having an experience is having a perception that it's going to be a certain way. So like I said, people think they're going to go under, whatever that means for you. You think you're going to have a completely different experience. You may do, but just going in with a really open mind. Okay, just going in, just kind of whatever happens, happens. It's usually just a lovely feeling of relaxation. Like I said, some people will go deeper than others. Nothing is wrong, nothing's better or worse than the other. That's just how it is. And the other thing is to, obviously, if anyone is listening to this live or, either recording or anything, make sure you're in a safe space. Please don't listen to this if you're driving or operating heavy machinery. Please make sure you're in a safe, calm, quiet space where you won't be disturbed. And things to just pay attention to is just be in it. Just be open-minded, be in it. Let whatever happens, happens. You might get some visuals, you might get sensations, you might get some smells, different images might come to your mind, different feelings might come into your body. Know that you're in a perfectly safe space and you're not going to lose control. Everything, I'm here. This works complete. I do this online a lot, so you don't have to do it in person. And I will bring you out of the state of hypnosis, a state of relaxation at the end, and everything will be wonderful. And you'll just feel like you had a lovely experience.
Amazing. So exciting. So, why don't you let us know what kind of, I guess, journey you are taking us on, so we have an idea before I let you take the stage solo?
Of course. So given that this is to do with human design, I'm actually doing one so that you can kind of release emotions. So there'll be a point where I kind of go into whether you have a defined solar plexus or undefined solar plexus. And there'll be a paragraph where I'll say about the defined solar plexus first. So if you're undefined, you just kind of tune that out. And then there'll be a part where I say about the undefined solar plexus. And then you just take whichever instruction applies to you based on the definition of your solar plexus. So it's releasing kind of emotional energy.
I am very impressed with you choosing this, because like the solar plexus definition versus undefined is pretty much like 50-50. So this is going to work
Yeah.
for pretty much everyone depending on your definition. So
yeah. And that's why I chose this, because I was like, right, is a demonstration for like multiple people? Because normally, obviously, I just do this one-to-one. So it's going to be very tailored, very specific. And I was like, oh, okay, this is the simplest. And this applies to everyone. And I think, pretty much everybody has challenges or things to work on with emotional regulation, because this is not something that most of us were taught as children. So I hope that this helps.
Oh, I'm so excited. So, what I'm going to do, viewers, is I'm going to let Sophie take the stage and take us through this magical journey. It's all yours.
Hello, everyone. So, as I said, please do not listen to this if you're driving or operating heavy machinery. Please find a comfortable, calm place where you can sit or lie down without distractions. If you can't do that right now, then just pause this and come back to it later. So just find a space where you can relax, where you can lie down or sit down. Now close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it for a moment. And exhale slowly through your mouth. Then I'd like you to do that again. Inhale deeply. Hold. And exhale slowly. And just continue doing that for a few moments now. With each breath, just feel yourself letting go of the busyness of your day. And just settling into this moment. Just being here in the present. And just enjoy this lovely feeling of relaxation. There's nothing to do, nowhere to be, nothing to think about. As you continue to breathe slowly and deeply, bring your attention to the top of your head. And just imagine a soft wave of relaxation beginning to flow down from your head, just gently melting away any tension in your forehead, your temples, your eyes. Feel that wave of relaxation moving down to your jaw, releasing any tightness or tension in your jaw. And then down to your neck and your shoulders, where it softens and loosens any heaviness you've been carrying. And with every breath out, every exhalation, let your shoulders drop a little more. Feel that relaxation moving down through your arms, through your elbows, your wrists, and into your hands and fingers. Now let that soothing wave flow through your chest and your back, softening every muscle as it moves down to your stomach, allowing your stomach to relax fully and relaxing your hips and your legs. Feel your thighs, your knees, your calves, your ankles, and your feet becoming more and more relaxed, more heavy, more grounded, as if they're sinking into the surface beneath you. With each breath, let your body relax more deeply, knowing that throughout this experience you are completely safe and supported. Now, for those of you that have a defined solar plexus, those with emotional authority, I'd like you to imagine an ocean within you, representing your emotions. Some days the waves are calm and gentle, barely lapping at the shore. Other times they rise and swell, crashing and pulling. Take a moment to notice this within you. And see yourself standing at the edge of this ocean, watching the waves. As you breathe in, feel the energy of the waves rising, and as you breathe out, see the waves naturally begin to recede. You don't need to control them, you don't need to stop them. Just allow them to be. Simply observe their rhythm, knowing that all waves eventually settle into calm, peaceful waters. For those of you with an undefined solar plexus with a different authority, I'd like you to imagine a beautiful, clear bubble of light surrounding your entire body. This bubble protects your energy and allows you to feel emotions while gently filtering out anything that isn't yours. As you breathe, notice any heaviness or tension you might be carrying that doesn't belong to you. Maybe it's a word someone said or a feeling you picked up from another person. Imagine these emotions as small particles of dust floating outside of your bubble. With every breath out, watch these particles dissolve and drift away, leaving you lighter, calmer, and clearer. And know that this bubble is always here for you, keeping you centered in your own energy. Now, for all of you, I want you to imagine a warm golden light glowing in the center of your chest. This light represents your unique energy, your strength, and your wisdom. As you breathe in, feel this light growing brighter and warmer, spreading outwards through your chest, down your arms and into your hands. Feel it moving up into your head, clearing your thoughts, relaxing your brain, and then down through your stomach, your legs and your feet, anchoring you deeply into the earth. This golden light is your anchor. It reminds you that no matter what waves of emotion come your way, You are grounded, resilient, and capable of responding with calm and wisdom. Breathe this light in and know that it is there with you always. And now I'd like you to think of a moment when you recently felt triggered. Whatever comes into your mind is fine. And without getting caught up in the situation or the emotions, simply bring it to your mind like a pebble in your hand. Notice the weight of the pebble, its texture, and how it feels to hold it. Now imagine a gentle river flowing nearby. You can walk over to the river now and simply drop the pebble into the water. Watch as the current gently carries it away further and further downstream. As you watch the pebble grow smaller and smaller, as it disappears from view, feel the release in your body. Feel the tension dissipate. And know that that pebble no longer belongs to you. It's gone, leaving space for peace, calm, and clarity. Enjoy this feeling now, this feeling of lightness, of peace, of calm. Notice the lack of tension in your body, the lack of tension in your mind. And just take a moment to anchor this feeling into your consciousness. Know that this feeling of peace, calm, and clarity is yours to access anytime you choose. It is you that has created this. You have the power to change the way you think, the way you feel. Nobody else has any power over you. At any given moment, you can close your eyes, come into your body, and recreate this feeling of peace, calm, and clarity. No matter what happens in your day, no matter what happens in your week, you have the strength and power to choose how you respond. So just enjoy this feeling for a few more moments. Notice how it feels in your body. Notice how it feels in your mind. And if you'd like to, you can even associate a word with this, a word that you can take with you back into the present, back into your conscious, that you can say to yourself anytime you want to feel these feelings of peace, calm, and clarity again. And now take a deep cleansing breath in and let it out, exhaling slowly. Begin to bring your awareness back to the room around you. Wiggle your fingers and toes, gently start to move your body, feeling this gentle energy returning. When you're ready, take another deep breath in and then slowly open your eyes. Feeling refreshed, calm and centered, feeling restored, feeling like you've just had a really lovely deep nap or relaxation and you're ready to take on the day. Just take a moment now to realize how you feel now compared to how you felt before. And know, as I said, that this feeling of calm, peace, and clarity is always within you, and you can return to it whenever you need. Thank you.
That was absolutely lovely. Look at the comments. That was great. It was really, really nice. You have such a beautiful, soothing voice. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really, really nice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm wondering if Danny's going to be like, let's look at her throat gates, but let's see. Oh, this is quite the compliment. Look at that. Favorite demo of the series.
Wow. Thank you.
That's high praise. Very exciting. Oh, I can see Danny raring to go. Amazing. So, friends, Sophie, you can let everybody know what you have going on, what things you want them to check out, and I'm going to put Sophie's links in the chat.
So yeah, I've got a few things going on. I've got an ebook I'm about, or another ebook I'm about to release on reparenting. So really about uncovering your core wounds and shadows. Some shadow reports. I have some courses. I do one-to-one work with human design and hypnotherapy. I'll have an audio library coming out soon where I've got lots of recordings in there. So all of the things coming as and when it does, because I am a manifestor. I'm not a generator, so I'm mindful of my energy. But I've got lots of things coming up, in the next few months as well. And I have a training going on in January as well for anybody that's interested in using human design and looking more at some of the deeper aspects of it to incorporate with something like hypnotherapy or like breath work, because I really feel that human design can be just such a great map if somebody has an existing modality. Like I said, I was a hypnotherapist first and foremost before I started using human design. And it just allows me to, make those changes even faster by really kind of seeing, how somebody is designed to be, and where they're stuck.
Beautiful. So, without further ado, I'm sure Danny is super stoked to see where this beautiful human being and your beautiful voice and all the wonderful changes you're bringing to the collective comes from. So, Danny, ready? Tag team out. Boop. Thank you so much, Sophie.
Tag team. And before I come on, la 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 la, I'll do this. If I'm doing this in the background, people must think I'm weird because I got to get my throat warmed up. It's a
I understand.
manifesting generator, or else I'll just start in like gangbusters if I don't do that. Hi Sophie,
Hi.
nice to meet you on here. So we're gonna pull up your body graph in a minute, and I've been looking through other things. I like listening to you talk, and I'm wondering where in your family that gate 61 is. Is there a gate 61 somewhere between mom, dad, or an older sister?
I have an older brother. I don't think so. Without looking at their charts, I
Hmm.
don't think so. But I can, yeah, it's something I can look at later and kind of come
Well,
back to comment about. Not that I'm aware of.
right. No, all good enough. So I'm wondering where in your life that 61 was, or maybe it was there during an important transit, like when you were
Hmm.
discovering something, because all of these gate ones will keep ringing with this idea of getting to the bottom of things. And that's what you were saying at one point in time. And suddenly it just occurred to me, where's that 61 in your chart about? I mean, in your family growing up, that might have been there to condition you, or maybe a
It
long-standing
could even
transit.
be. It could even be, and again, I'd have to check. I also grew up with my parents, my brother, and my maternal grandmother. So could even be something in there.
Grandma Pluto. So I'm betting dollars to donuts. There's a 61 in there somewhere. But no, as I was looking
I'll
at
have a
all
look.
of your lower, I say lower, meaning the longer transiting planets, lower because it's just lower by view in the chart from
Hmm.
Saturn on down. Actually, not even just Saturn, but from uh, Jupiter on down. I see a lot of 136 energy. And so I know this 3-6 resounds with you. So here's this long process, Jupiter taking 28 years, Saturn, I mean, taking 28 years, then 40 years, and then finally a whole life cycle. All these like upper planets that take forever to go, they format nations for a long time, in worlds. And so here you are with this truth in this 32 first line. And I know this doesn't resonate with either of your profile or your nodes gates, but it just strikes me, yes, the 32, the 31. There's over here the 3 and the 6 is on the left hand side, the 32 and the 3 in the third line. Now this resonates to this profile of yours, the 6-line profile. And so here's a trial and errorist who's not really a trial and errorist because you passed through that phase quite long ago, but it looks like there was major amounts of like just sort of bumping into the thing that then you had to discover what was it all, because if you don't discover what it's all about, then the thing that you know you do, withdrawal and provocation, this withdrawal for assessment, or the temperance, or first line of 39, disengagement, stepping back as a matter, as a way to provoke. It's almost as if it encompasses all three lines of the fifth of the 39, the first three lines, the disengagement, the second line confrontation, which is something that, you do have a second line in your nodes in the four ways, but the confrontation, and then this responsibility that will just sort of go at it leading up to line 4. Have you read the lines in your chart?
Yes, I have, particularly for the incarnation cross. Yes, not necessarily for all of the planets, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. But at this point in time, the back of the book is where I spend 95% of my time, if not more, just because that's where all this mystery is. But so I get to this temperance, this careful evaluation and assessment before taking action as a life process, means that it wasn't very careful up to the age of 30, unless you had, strict parents maybe, or an upbringing that was really strict. Was it a strict upbringing, or sort of open and easy, or medium, or?
No, open and easy.
Got lucky. Oh, lucky for you, right? You look back and realize that was a lucky shot for a manifester.
Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, I think the conditioning that I recognize, and it's become very apparent since I had my son, is really from school. Like the things that are stuck there that are still like, the overarching patterns that are still there is mostly from school.
Yeah, schooling will very much do that to us. And again, there's no 61 in your chart, but I just sense this great seeking of mystery, coming to the understanding of things. This cross is on its way to individualism. I mean, I don't know if that's, you know that like mentally probably, but it's a big part of what you are. Not that you're in the cross of individualism, that's, left angle and all that. You're still absorbed in your own process, but still, when I look at how all that goes, and I see temperance in a fourth line, I just want to read this one thing. So, learning to provoke people when you were little, and then recognizing later that this provocation wasn't even really poking at things. It was more you introspectively going in to find out what would they see, or what was worth seeing in them, what was worth sort of having them be with to you. Is this amazing process going back and forth that you wouldn't have necessarily known how to make sense of in your younger years. This would have been a crashing zone, I'm guessing.
Well, what's interesting when I've looked at my family's charts, and so including my maternal grandmother, who we grew up with, who was in the same house, of the 5 of us, all of us have gate 39 except my father. And so, and I notice.
You just learned that, I guess that's what life is about, right?
Yeah. And so I noticed, with that, it was my father, I think, that was more impacted by all of us having 39. My brother is actually on the cross of individualism. So there's a lot of, there's these threads of that. So the 39 is very prominent for him. So it's kind of interesting. So I didn't feel so much like that was a challenge when I was a child, I suppose, because I was surrounded by that.
Yep.
It wasn't like I was the kind of odd one out,
Well, think about what this gate's most looking into, especially after puberty. It's looking at a type of where is the romance, and where is the passion, and where is the person, especially with the gate 12, that is melancholy until there's someone around worth listening to. So this provocation would be obedient to gate 12 over and over again. It's not even worth it, and not even worth it, and and then, oh my God, possibly worth it. And then I see that you're not emotional, but I'm willing to bet you might have identified as emotional. Like, that's funny hearing myself say that. Do you identify as emotional? Emotionally, and so forth beforehand. That must have been strange, because at times then there would be no wave, and all there would be was like a melancholy. Gate 12's melancholy, I'm guessing, would be one of the more profound ones, because it's just right there, awake in your center of manifestation.
Hmm.
In fact, that
Yeah,
is your way.
I definitely relate to that, and having felt melancholic and just kind of like not really knowing what to do or where it was coming from. And my mother's emotional authority, my father's sacral, but and my grandmother was emotional authority as well. So yeah, that's when I first found human design. Looking back at it now, I would have identified as being an emotional generator. That's how I
Mm,
would have identified when I was 29 because of conditioning.
right, right. No, I can totally see that. Um, so we take 39 and we recognize its desire to get to gate 12. This is a huge nexus for you. These things draw a nexus to each other. There's a Tao between the two that breathes in and out, between it's worth listening to. You know, this is where the social being becomes social. And notice we're not talking about the thing that makes you the manifester yet, because if you could control your own environment, you were basically happy. Um, Mostly, so mostly that you were would be at peace with most of that. And I'm dealing with this prana between gate 39 and an open center and gate 12 in a defined center. The melancholy of all these things would have been the thing to literally get used to. And I imagine you have some writings, you have some things that are so impactful that you couldn't throw away over the years that you wrote even when you were 12. Um,
Mm-hmm.
was there a depth there from when you were younger that you were?
Yes, and then also, and it's something that's kind of come up more since I was, in my 20s. I have been told again by many people that I'm a very good writer. However, when I was at school, my English teacher for a large part of my, young childhood didn't like. I was terrified of her. I was really terrified of her. And so then I made the decision. I hate English language. I hate writing. So I never did anything with that until I started traveling in my 20s and I started writing a travel blog. And people are like, oh my God, you're a great writer. And it's funny and it's deep. And it's kind of, so I do feel like I have that natural talent, but I don't know so much that I expressed that in my childhood or teenage years because of this interaction. I was just like, I don't like that because I was so put off by this person and so like genuinely just fearful of this person that I was like, I'm just not going to do that. So it's definitely something that's kind of come out later.
Did you confront them ever? Or you were just
No,
afraid of it? Right.
no. I mean, I was like 8, 9 years old at this time. I can't even
Gotcha.
remember her name now, actually. But like, I found a when I was back visiting my parents. I found a textbook from that. And as soon as I started reading some of the comments, I burst into tears. And this is how strong, how long conditioning can stay with us.
Yeah. Yeah, I can
It's just
imagine.
more than 30 years later.
Right. We open emotional people are supposed to burst into tears now and again. It's really an empowerment. And I'm willing to bet that even the tears you felt empowering about how you know it now. Because these
Hmm.
tears, these moments, usually for the open emotional, very often is a sudden knowing. And
Hmm.
the knowing
Hmm.
it very often is not just the sadness. Most of the time, it's an empowerment. It's like
Hmm.
that old line from the song that pain doesn't generally make an adult cry, but happiness will. It'll bring us right to the edge of all of that where things get so beautiful. So then, have you made the sense of this 38 and this 39 and this sort of struggle that comes along with all of that as just wicked profound in your life, that it be intermittent? Sometimes you're free of it, and
Hmm.
sometimes it's being opened up and let out into the world. And if ever there was two gates that seemed perfectly reasonable to be in an open center, it'd be these two, because you don't need to struggle and fight every minute of every day and be wondering about how should you be provocative, because
Hmm.
this is already be hard enough. And when it's provocative, how should you withhold yourself? Tell me a little bit about how this provocation is lived out in your life, because as a fourth line, it's friendly. It abdicates. It'll see maybe it's a little too much. It'll pull back and say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Don't mind me." That kind of thing. I'm a fourth line. I'm a 2/4. I say it all the time. And but it doesn't make the desire for it any less. This passion that wants to come out and find out what is the sentiment of this situation, or this man, or woman, whatever. But you know what I mean. This other that
Yeah.
might be romantically available.
So it's funny. Another ego manifestor once told me I was too soft, too soft to be an ego manifestor, and I'm like, well, I'm a fourth line, so that does soften it to a degree as well. So, and it's not just, a lot of people just go, well, you're a manifestor, you have to be like this, and I'm like, there's so many nuances to everything. But yeah, I've definitely noticed I will feel like melancholic if I don't have something to fight for, or like something to do. Like, I even met somebody yesterday and they had something, and I was like, right, I can do this thing, and I can fight for them. So I noticed that really strongly. What's interesting is, since I had my son 3 years ago, he's also cross of tension, but cross of tension 3. And so he has the 3955 and he also has the 22. So I have this is defined, and a defined spleen and a defined sacral. So this is kind of like, I'm having this a lot, like just, being with him most of the time.
So you had a child that basically hooked up with the 55 and the 22, this whole stream.
Yeah, and then, he's 7 centers defined. Yeah, 7 defined centers, so not the head or the ajna. And then his split is gate 22, not gate 12. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you're single deaf, but still, that opens it up. No, I find this emotional way of ours that struggles and fights for a purpose. It being in an open center means that you were spared the thing that 60 always does and feels stuck, and the thing that 19 always does that feels there's not enough. It always feels like it needs, and that obscures the view. You have one strategic view in your body graph and it sees probabilities. And then suddenly 19 comes along and in an open center turns on because something turned it on. And suddenly you start focusing on the resources you may not have and wonder why you're looking at that. Of course, if you grew up in a decent family, that resource question would have been left to something more fanciful, not like survival wise. 60 says, I'm stuck. I know there's something in the end. I keep knowing I have to surrender, and to accept in order to transcend. Acceptance equals the transcendence. But all of that still stands under the shadow of this struggle for a purpose, this thing that won't let us go until you're in control of how this thing is playing out for a purpose. It's in an open center, so it's only has to be on once in a while. It demands empowerment. It demands to empower the other, right? And so you've noticed that. So here comes your friend that you just mentioned or whatever, and they say a thing. If you can empower them in the moment, out comes the ego, rolls up its sleeves and says, wants to gather everything together, wants to gather the resources, depending on how big it is. And as the magnanimous king and the queen in our 9-centered forms, that gathering is to give. It's to give knowledge, give resource, give things, not to take like in the old 7-centered way. It's quite the opposite. We've just flipped everything. We've yin and yanged each other, and we've got to dang well get used to that, is my opinion. So I'm looking at a design of someone that wants to save the world. Do you notice that?
Yeah. This incident yesterday, like, none of this is about me. I just met this person and I was like, oh my God, this thing has happened. I can help. Yeah, basically I can help you fix it. I can help you to, and I would gain nothing from this. And I think that's the, like you just said, that's the thing about the 2145. I think it has this bad rap and people think it's selfish. And a lot of kids with this get told that they're selfish. And it's like, it's not about that. It's not about that. Like the thing that I want to do for this person, and it is gathering people together basically to raise some money to help this person. I gain nothing from it.
Right, exactly. Well, except what the 9-centered form is designed to gain from it. It gains the awareness that other people then see in you as you become your role model self, and over time it becomes, Sophie's the gal. Let's talk to Sophie, and that's right where the king and the queen are supposed to be. The 45 is supposed to temper the 21. I find in the not self being, these two gates like act out. They act out. I mean, you got 21 3 separate times. Do I have that right? Oh my God, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So
all unconscious.
They're all unconscious. So I see 1 6 and 2 5s. It's in the 5th line twice. Okay. So at least it's all still in the upper trigram that sees a utility and a certain amount of value that has to go along with being pissed that you're not in control of your environment, your way, your speech, your things, your whatever you're about to do, the set you're about to set up because you're going to talk to someone, all of these things. You're not in control if too much stuff is going on and you just need it to stop while you're about to deal with a client, let's say, whatever. This stuff ends up more magnanimous. In the lower lines, I've seen gate 21 in the not self version just be explosive, just be relatively explosive, and 45 I've seen in the not self-conditioned being just sort of feel entitled about certain things. And then as you've probably seen it too, and then as you awaken to certain things yourself, especially, and this ego nature of your rest cycle, suddenly it brings so much compassion for the other. The gates 12 and 39 become a great hub. Again, another prana and a Tao between the two that turns into a great deal of compassion, or not. Have you found out that this cross of yours, because of its fixedness and where it must put its energy, to whom it empowers, that it can just as easily withdraw? I mean, you resonate to disengagement. There's for lots of that first line energy in your far out planet. And so disengagement had no life process. It was just like, sorry, I'm out. But Sophie, what about this? What about that? No. But Sophie, we have these things against you or for you. Either way. No. And they had to like yank this out of you. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, definitely.
None of this, but none of that. So you don't have any first lines in your incarnation cross, like secondary things, like you don't have the 39 doesn't appear again, does it? First line, no. Yeah. So, but there you are, totally harmonizing to it. That's why I wanted to point to that couple of times where a first line shows up in your personality on those far, far out planets. I really just see that as dragging this fourth line personality of yours into its investigative mode, along with its keynotes, the disengagement, and let's see, what's the other one? Qualification, basically tempering your opposition to something, tempering your ability to go in and fight to wondering if it's even worth it. Have I investigated enough? And that itself is a withdrawal. So now you can really allow the first lines of this 39 and the 34 to meld into what it really means to be your fourth line self, even though they're not there. It just, again, it struck me when I was looking at your chart. And then you qualified that when you talked about needing to find out the mystery of stuff. Get into the bottom line. You need to know what the scoop is. So these arrows and the probabilities. So I'm wondering, did you go through the exercise of recognizing your transference between the probability and the possibility in your view? Because it's the one strategic arrow in your body graph. When Ra
Very
gave
much
that,
so.
Yeah, when Ra gave that talk about, witnessing transference, he used probability as the first example. And I'll never forget, I witnessed myself witnessing myself, in this profound moment, because I have probabilities too. Do you remember this moment by chance? Because you would have seen it stunningly in that moment.
Yeah, and I continue to kind of see it if it does come up. I can really recognize when I get caught up. It's particularly it relates to me mostly in romantic situations like that. I can really get caught up in possibility and really carried away, and bringing myself back, like, right, what's actually happening? What's actually happening? Don't get caught up in this fantasy and daydream. What is actually happening? What has someone actually said? What is actually realistic? I very much recognize it now.
Yeah, I myself, with that probabilities versus possibilities, have very much all throughout my life lived out plenty of the possibilities, but something inside me almost always tempered it into relegating whatever that was into something that made no never mind. I remember when I was broke going to school, I would spend $1 every day on the possibility that mega bucks lottery ticket would hit. And I sat there every day, and sometimes I wouldn't look at it for a couple of days because it's possible it's a winner, But my probabilities always know it's probably not. And I remember I was never very disappointed with any of that. Have you gone through any of that where it's like, I'll just entertain the possibility, but I'm not hooked on it? And your friends would be like, don't.
Yeah, sometimes it's been really, sometimes it's kind of yeah, I've really got caught up in something and I have gone through that kind of like disappointment. But then sometimes, yeah, like you said, it's just kind of like, oh, okay. I never really thought my not self mind might have thought there was a possibility, but like kind of deeply, I'm like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you do have one gate pointing at these expectations that would want something out of it, but I'm guessing you made sense of this 36 early on, because before you knew what it was constantly getting turned on into really disturbing, in a sense, what that 39 and 38 are doing.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you would have a way to explain that better than I, but so by now that 36 is in check, right? I mean, you've seen it now act itself out.
Yeah, very
Do you have
much.
any?
Yeah.
What's that been
Well,
like?
I think in terms, so I definitely, when I was a teenager and even my early 20s, and again, particularly if I relate it to relationships, the way that I dealt with emotions was very much, it was kind of chaotic. It was crisis. It was like, if I had a relationship and it was like the worst thing in the world. And it was really, because that's the only gate that I have there. And so I think a lot of my deconditioning has been focused around the solar plexus. And like if I asked people now, they would say that they think I have a strong level of emotional maturity. So I think that's the biggest growth I've done is around that. Whether it's been partly intentional and then partly also, I guess, circumstantial. But yeah, I've definitely shifted in that a lot from how I was, a couple of decades ago.
Yeah, that possibilities is really, it just is really important, to recognize I am supposed to go there once in a while. I'm just not really supposed to live there. I definitely don't count on it. And the probability is I can't count on it. So it's that whole thing that when you see it, it stops being the thing that your friends have to, be worried about. Well, Sophie, I just don't want you to be disappointed, right? That one.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't care. I'm doing this thing anyways, but it might not work, and we don't want you to get too disappointed, that whole thing.
Yeah.
The rest of the rightness, have you basically realized that these right arrows, they're pulling humanity towards this openness, that we're still not used to yet, and that this right stuff is like that Shaolin priest that's able to catch flies in midair, you know what I mean, with his chopsticks, like Mr. Miyagi, but accidentally. You can't try. So if you recognize the depth that you can't try to get, you have to be, not like you're a generator, but you still have to be asked. There has to be some kind of interaction in order to pull this depth from you. Have you seen that profoundly? You got 3 or 4.
Definitely. And this is something that comes in when people make generic observations. People very often say manifestors don't like questions. And I need to be asked questions because of that right-mindedness. And so again, this is this kind of blanket statement sort of like, that's not always true. And it's not, I think that's not the only thing, but that's part of it, it's maybe partly being a fourth line as well. But yeah, I noticed that it's challenging for me when I'm teaching, when I'm preparing something. I recognize that strategy it's not an organization, it's not my strength. I lean on other people or tools to help me with that. And I have to, again, this conditioning of like, if I was preparing to do a talk or even preparing to come on here, there's only so much preparation that I can do because it's just whatever is going to come out is going to come out. So it's really been this journey of, deconditioning that, because at school, again, I can only speak for my own schooling, but typically at school, it's very left centric.
Totally.
And so there's been a huge, even now, unlearning of the way that I learn. Like even when I, last time I did another training, I recognize how programmed I are to sit there and want to take notes. And it's like, no, if I'm distracted, I'm not going to take it in. And, I played around like over the course of a few weeks of, I'm going to be here and pay attention. But invariably there are distractions. And I'm like, okay, I have to go back and listen to something again. So it feels sometimes, learning can be a very slow process, but that's, I'm accepting of that. I know that I don't necessarily learn things as quickly as somebody else would, and I just kind of, again, allow myself to take that time. And there's also been a real journey in trusting that information is there, and trusting that somebody can ask the questions to pull that out, and trusting also the depth as well. There's been a lot of feelings in the past of inadequacy, not knowing enough, wanting to learn more. So yeah.
That's a good one to notice. The 36 and the 38, you got it on both sides, from both ends of the collective. The collective is screaming at you, you know what I mean? Thinking it's sharing the right thing, you know what I mean? I totally get that. That left arrow from your view would strategically be wanting to hook into what it sees and think that it thinks it's connected with that, and that's what it wants, rather than just recognizing that the view that's strategic and focused and pulling in data from a conceptual way, because you're the channel going to the ajna, but still the 17 is there and it's pulling it in a conceptual way, and then at the same time it's sitting there thinking it thinks it's trying to do something with it, other than being a giant funnel. The view, when it's facing left for this configuration, is a giant funnel for the rightness to gain so much. The rightness gains so much from allowing the view to not care, but it thinks it cares, and that's what you're describing. What do you make of that?
Yeah, very much. So it's just been really like trusting the process, recognizing the stories in my mind, allowing myself to kind of go at my own pace, trusting that the knowledge will come. And yeah, I do recognize that there's this sort of almost like pull to, especially when there's just so much noise going on that you have to do things this way and this is the way to do things and this is how to be successful and so much noise everywhere, really trusting that my way is okay and just leaning into that and not pushing myself. And, there's a lot, one of the biggest journeys for me recently in the last 3 years since I had my son has actually been around anxiety and like the root center and this pressure. And even yesterday I was like, wow, I feel so overwhelmed by all these things that I have to do, all these deadlines I've set myself. And I'm like, I don't have to do that. I can just relax and I can just release and I can just let it go, because I really start to feel all this pressure in my body. And just recognizing, I mean, both pressure centers open, but it's particularly the root, because I feel that it feels tense and it feels anxious. And it's like, oh, da, da, da. And I recognized also, going back to my family, I was the only one growing up with an undefined root center.
Everyone else in the family had it defined? Wow.
And my son has it defined.
Not your pressure. And that's a hard one. The root center to me is so, because it's adrenaline, it's so hooked in with what the spleen is aware of. And it's not like the solar plex knows it's aware of stuff yet, easily. We got to go through a whole wave. Spleen has no such process. So it commands, as much as anything, what all of the adrenal juice is going to do, meaning existential, right now, ergo conditioned, and wicked hard to get rid of. The root's been my hardest one. I would have thought the ego would be, I'm open ego, you know what I mean? And I was always trying to think I had to prove something, or be afraid when I couldn't, all those stupid things. Always felt limited if someone else was suddenly better at something, I suddenly had a chip on my shoulder. That one wasn't that hard. It had so many keynotes to look at, and it was such a relief to be like, oh, good, I got nothing to prove. And start to live that out and let my rightness prove whatever's worth proving. That's what I'm here for. You guys are the ego beings. You prove it. I'll help, or whatever. I'll get dragged along. But the root is still just so profoundly driving that adrenaline pressure into us that's not ours. You got it 4 separate times. I got it 2. I have the 19 and the 60. So I'm well aware, and even saying it's not my pressure does not stop my body from tensing up. That I think I'm supposed to do something. Is that how you experience it, pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, I find particularly for me, it feels like, pressure in terms of work. So I just kind of like, right, okay, I find what helps me, because I just feel like I get overwhelmed, and I notice, even my breathing shifts and I feel tension, anxiety in my body. I'm like, right, let's write it all down on paper, get it out, write it down. And then it doesn't, or break things down into steps, and then it doesn't feel so kind of pressurized and overwhelming. And just also knowing, like, I'm creating these deadlines for myself. I don't need to do that. I can just relax. And but that trying to get things done to be free of the pressure is so resonant. And then as soon as I just make a decision to be like, I'm just going to change it, I'm like, ah.
Wait till the first time, if you haven't done it already, you actually say to someone, when you guys are in a hurry to get somewhere, but it's someone else's route that's making it happen. And They're anxious because we got to get there. We got to, whatever the thing is. And I found myself saying it several years back. It was so liberating. I was like, hey, this ain't my pressure. And I got screamed at. And you know what? But it took a little time, and that particular provocation on my part helped everything else calm down. We were such better friends after we could laugh at that. And I
Wow.
found suddenly Gate 12 and me had someone worth talking to. You know, so
Yeah.
let the provocation, don't ever stop this provocatory nature, even though it will abdicate and it loves its aloneness. It's already going to sidestep certain things, not like a second line, but like the thing that just basically removes itself. The provocation is to do nothing half the time, you know what I mean, or just withdraw, hold back. But you don't squash this in your life, dude, because it's a mystical little spot. I mean, there's no reason for this. Sometimes it almost seems like, dude, that's rude, but you're doing it anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
don't let that abdicate or and you think that it's bad, I guess would be the only thing I could say. I don't know if it's ever happened. It's like, oh, I went too far. I pushed them away. I blah blah blah. You know,
Yeah, it's
I don't have,
definitely happened in the past, and I've also had someone kind of say something about that, and I'm like, no, because I know that that's, yeah, I know that
yeah.
that's important for me. And it's always done with a good intention. Like a few weeks ago, I wrote something about like just, I don't even remember exactly what it was, what the kind of instigator was, but I just wrote something about like, hey, stop being a dick on the internet. Like, you know, just kind of got this thing about like people are just so mean sometimes, and yeah, try having a bit more compassion. And it was quite a, yeah, just meh. But I got, you know, again, I got a lot of feedback from that saying thank you for saying that, because like I wish other people had said that.
Well, the mature manifester with this big fat ego going and I mean the alpha, you got this nice mixture between this collective and then this abstract circuitry, right? Both pouring into the throat center. Um, 13 rules a day and all of that, because ultimately that's a stop codon that says I will remember, and since it's part unconscious in you, it does its job. Is it part of, yeah, it's all unconscious. And that does its job at literally bringing the whole thing back into focus. So this is one of your proudest moments, when all the mental activity and the power and this love of self and love of the experience goes flying in, and you're leading the way to finally basically bring the story back to them, your client, that they gave you in the first place. You're just the metamorphosizer of that. Throat is metamorphosis, right? So you bring into metamorphosis from the hypnotherapy the story they need to hear. Does that sound familiar? You
Yeah.
help them hear the
Yeah.
story they need to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's profound. Actually, this is cool. So the impact of 12, the gathering of the stuff, the leadership desiring to influence, the depth that's there, whether it's an open center, comes in a fanciful story that helps them impact them basically to resolve their own crisis and get through their own struggle. Basically, that's what you're doing. Your job is to do that. That's your job description. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Pretty
I love
much.
this freaking picture, huh? I love the pretty picture in the center, right? Come on. Um,
Mm.
you know, have something larger to discuss if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just what do you make of this movement we're making as humanity from our seven-centered way to our nine-centered way?
What do I make of it in terms of?
Just I don't know. What do you make of it? I mean, you're a being that would love to gather and empower with all the juice.
I mean, I think it's definitely really challenging. I think that there is so much conditioning, you know,
Mm,
around, it's still so much seven-centered conditioning, you know, and I've done a lot of reflection on that. Like, when do I feel that I'm slipping into that seven-centered conditioning? Or, you know, when do I get caught up in certain things? You know, and a lot of that can be kind of around, you know, money and materialism and things like that. Or when do I just feel that I'm getting pulled into that shadow self? And for me, sometimes it's come up with, you mentioned earlier, like kind of entitlement. And I've recognized
mm,
that. Also because I've got the the 45s in my Mars, that's definitely like a journey of growth, and I've recognized it kind of come up in there. So, oh God, I mean, it's a big question. I feel that
it's a huge
there's
question.
potential, and there's definitely potential, but what? And again, this is going to be limited to like my perspective of who I've interacted with and what I've seen. It's sometimes hard for a lot of people to distinguish between who's genuine and who's not. So when we're talking about kind of, consciousness and spirituality, I see a lot of spiritual bypassing and a lot of this kind of like, love and light and everything. And I think people gravitate towards that, but they don't see necessarily the inauthenticity there. That is often there, that I think has been brought to light by, recent events over the last year. A lot of people that are kind of say that they're conscious and say that they're this and say that they care about humanity have shown themselves, not to be. It's I don't know. It's a very interesting time. I don't know what the future is. And even just actually contemplating that, I now feel this knot of like tension and nervousness in my stomach. I think it's something that sometimes, I now feel all this like kind of nervous energy, like, because there's a part of me that wants to help. I want to save the world. And then I also know that it's not my job and I can't. And so I have to really, this is like so intense now you've asked that. I really have to bring myself back. I can get caught up and swept up in things, and I have to bring myself back to, again, that probability. What can I do? Again, this is the like getting caught up in that possibility. And I do believe that you could have an impact as one person. I do believe that. But I have to sort of temper it and be like, what can I do? Excuse me, that's practical. And also really, with that gate 19, not going into that self-sacrificing and making sure that I do look after myself first and foremost, and knowing when to remove myself from a situation. I don't know if that really answers your question, but
it does. I mean, we're getting, because I want this conversation to breathe life for the next 40 years or whatever. Because this move, if the whole world like accepted for one moment, some key people said, oh, this is the new truth, and they marketed it, and everyone's like, oh, we're moving from 7 to 9. Humanity would like that. They'd want to start looking forward to that. If we had the marketing campaign of all marketing campaigns with an unlimited budget and started conditioning that in people, right, suddenly all humanity would want to get on board, like the old, Mark, remember the old Dr. Pepper commercial where it was, I'm a pepper, you're a pepper, wouldn't like to be a Dr. Pepper too. It was bandwagoning, it was pulling everyone in, and it just seems like we're basically ready for that. I see all that search for love and light, even if it's inside the beings that are still conditioned, that maybe they don't even know their design yet. The fact that they're going out on a limb and wanting that and saying it all out loud, when they could easily just shut up, is to me, I find at least encouraging, no matter what level they're at of things. And I see this rightness of ours as pulling it along. I herald that. My variables are the personality side is all right, and the design is all left. So my arrows are like pointing away from each other. So I have that open view. I don't know. Again, focus on that. Focus on what? Can you put a laser pointer on it so I can see what you're talking about? That's me trying to see the thing that's right even in front of me. And but you don't have that. You've got it slightly different. But this personality rightness that thinks it wants to think a certain way is really just dying to come back down into just being a certain way. Get past the I think I want to, and moves into the I don't think I want, I'm waiting, I think I want to, and then finally moving into I just am. And it becomes like the person with the 18 and the 48, and the 48 being in your cross, and that is that 18 any place? Yeah, that, and the 18's always feeding it. Doesn't matter that it's in an open center, it's happening your whole life long, intermittently, right? That means you love to repeat, and you have to start at the beginning. All right-minded people have to start at the beginning, or else we lose track of what we don't know. Repetition becomes our friend. Have you noticed this? And both annoyance and love of the repetition, the love of the repetition of what you love, and the sometimes just having to repeat certain things just because you got to get it right.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'll rewatch movies, I'll reread books, but if there's something that I dislike doing, because I would have said, it's funny that you said that, I would have said about I hate repetition, but like I will repeat something that like I
Yep.
do like, yeah, reread something, rewatch something, yeah, relearn something.
It's just the speedy in you that sort of, because I'm a manifesting generator. So sometimes until I get into it, the thing is when the rightness goes away, I'm seeing a design of a superior daydreamer, a person who can just go away as soon as you turn off the focus a little bit and let it get blurry, or just let the focus be like what in meditation would be letting the thoughts go by. So in meditation, we let the thoughts go by. In daydreaming for you, meaning just sort of becoming less than present is all I'm really referring to, because your mind has gone somewhere, is that
Yeah.
focus just becomes just blips going through of possibilities and probabilities. We are supposed to see the possibilities. We're just supposed to not necessarily do anything, because the probability is it's just a possibility, not worth doing anything on yet. But we're supposed to see
Yeah.
them loud and clear, loud and clear. It's not like we're missing them. So we can always hop onto it, right? We have to hop onto the possibility and have that faith once in a while. But
Mhm.
if you're literally pulling in all the time, just like myself, then do you find that you just go away into this daydreaming place sometimes?
Yeah, very much. And, I often will allow myself that as well because, right environment and stuff as well. I'm very aware of, I think, getting caught up with either what other people are doing, the way people are doing things, thinking things have to be a certain way. And very much like, listening to my body and tuning into my body. Like, I really, and I think that's one of the greatest things that everybody needs to do, because I think people, and again, this is from a personal and professional perspective, you're so caught up in your mind. Like I recognize really subtle sensations in my body, like even when you ask me that question, and I really recognize, and then I vocalize to bring it, more into my conscious awareness, what I'm feeling, and kind of again can kind of process that, because most people just kind of keep things in their body, or they're not connected to their body. So yeah, no, I definitely relate to that. But so I will kind of tune out, but I don't kind of tune out. Sometimes I'll tune out and dissociate, but I sort of tune out, but tune in, if that makes sense. I tune into my body and kind of really like sort of try to understand what's going on.
Well, I can see that. I'm just talking about the fanciful stuff with an open head center that just gets to pour through. It's like right-mindedness. I see the storyteller in this channel of this curiosity, and when I see that there and all that, again, it's fed by gate 33 as well. I just see this ease of like suddenly daydreaming and putting A with B when you wouldn't normally do that.
Yeah,
Because
sometimes
again,
do that.
yeah, pulling short-term things together to make them stimulating isn't just what you vocalize, it's also what goes on inside. This with that,
Mhm.
this with that. Oh, I got an idea. Oh, this with that. And it's my opinion, this idea is great because this goes with that, and I like it. That's a daydreaming process. I call it daydreaming. There's probably a better word for it. It's just checking out, especially when there's nothing else to do, and suddenly your mind is lost on what you just read, and you're starting to see it in 100 different ways. And like you read two
Very much.
sentences, yeah, and then you stop reading, right? Or you'll listen for a few minutes, and something will get said, and you have to pause it. And next thing you know, 8 minutes go by before you
That's
come back.
yeah. That's huge, and that's a process that I've just learned to accept, that it takes me a long time to take something in, because it will kind of, my mind will go off on all these different tangents. Even answering your questions, even though it's like only a minute, like I can get very easily distracted. I go off on a tangent, then I'm like, right, what did you actually ask me? Did I answer your question? And again, it's like just something that I've noticed. If I'm reading a book, exactly what you said, I'll read a bit and it will just generate something in me, and then I'm kind of like, like you said, a lot of minutes pass, and I'm like, okay. And it takes me a long time to finish reading a book or something like that.
It's supposed to.
And that's
That's our
okay.
gap.
And that's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, exactly. It's okay.
So I've just learned, I learned human design by a generator's obsessive. I'm a 2-4, so I just learned to obsess on the repetition. And year after year, every day, I could play the same thing like, 30, 40 times. And then finally, like 5, 6 years ago, like Forrest Gump running, you know what I mean? When he finally said, I want to go home now, I'm tired. I finally shut down the endless repetition of it all. And it just, then I felt like the Karate Kid. wax on, wax off. And that becomes a motto for us right-minded. No, just learn wax on, wax off. Stop bitching at Mr. Miyagi. He knows what he's doing. Remember, he always had to polish all the cars and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you having me do? Why am I painting your deck? I found that to be really insightful. I mean, that was it. Just getting back to, we should go back. Do you have any questions you want to ask? Something that you want to dig into?
No, I mean, you've covered kind of a lot of different aspects, and I know, just to touch on, I guess, what you just said, like, yeah, with the 1156, like I had the aha recently that the 11, because I will always say, like, I have 100 ideas before breakfast, but I had a big realization recently. I was like, there's this kind of like, because it's Neptune, right, and there's this veil, there's this kind of like, I'm always trying to find the idea, right. And I recognize that sometimes that can be something that's kind of like, holding me back. And it's like, I'll have an idea and then I'll like do a bit of that. And then I'm like, oh, that's another idea. It's like this little, shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I've always found to let Neptune drive you crazy on purpose and then go in and look a little bit. So it's my cheating way of looking behind the veil without expecting anything from it. You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to not look behind the veil once in a while. It's just like, I'm not going to not play with matches once in a while. Just something that I do personally. I would like to end this with just this whole 7 to 9 centered thing. And I'm not sure how best to get it all out, but I do know there's the Human Design Conference thing that's starting to catch speed. I hope I get to talk at it one day, and my openness can just blab for a little while. And I sure hope I hope more of us get together as a way of, I guess, finding the right communion and then becoming the force that I know we are. No one has seen an intentional human design community yet, like full on. We've seen aspects of it, totally big fat ones, but I'm talking about like a generation's worth of time where it's like, oh my God, this is the way. We haven't seen that yet. And I can't wait to start bringing that into the world. It's this joy I have whenever that starts to take place and it empowers the other. I just don't think anyone I know is willing to go into their neighbor's house and steal all their stuff anymore and make them see things their way and not allow, I don't know anyone that just plain doesn't want to allow the other to see things their own way all the time. And that would have been the old way. Force them to look at it the way we want, make the slaves look straight ahead, basically, was the old way. We can't look straight ahead. We look omnidirectionally. I think that the rest of humanity, they don't know human design yet, but they can certainly get behind just what you were saying. I don't have to teach human design or even say the word human design to bring their design to their awareness, through like the practice of things. You you just use the keynotes. They just show up naturally. And the person on the other end starts to see, oh my God, you're so good. It's like, yeah, I was good at learning. That's what I was good at. And now I can synthesize. That's really what it is. So anything, last things you want to say about this movement? Because I herald this as God's movement in a way. This heavenly celestial thing that's almost like the forces of this biverse pouring in on us, constantly driving consciousness into our program such that we have to live it out, is so eager and is so in love with spreading what the master keynote says, to raise the spirit through the work of finding the direction, bringing us to the ultimate creativity and expression of ourselves in communion. This is humanity's creative plight. That was from 55 down through up 14 to 1 to 8, just as a way to keynote, this master movement of humanity. And if we can give more people that just as a vision, they'll start daydreaming it up for themselves. This is the way I would
think this is one of the reasons I'm so passionate in focusing on working with parents. I don't only work with parents, but a lot, because there's such a movement towards conscious parenting, but I still find it's just like got that missing link, which is human design, because it's still generic kind of, this is how you do this is how you do gentle parenting. And again, there are so many nuances, but there's a really big movement, isn't there, really, towards conscious parenting and then like alternative or homeschooling. So, I think, once you add human design into that mix as well, you can really see those children for who they are. Because I think most of us, one of the cause of our conditioning is not feeling seen and heard and understood as children for whatever reason, and the more that we can do that, that's why I really do see that I've done human design in many areas, but really kind of helping parents, I feel like that is a really big way forward, because then you're empowering the next generation.
Right? Isn't that what, Robert? It's about the kids, folks, but we got to go through the parents to get to them.
Exactly. So that's what I'm dedicated to doing now.
Yeah, it would be a little odd trying to talk to the 5-year-old about who's a creepy man talking to my children. No can do. It won't work. And just to recognize, what every parent of a young child can recognize, life is supposed to be towards beauty. We're supposed to make it more pretty. We do that for our kids all the time. Oh, you want it this way, you want it that way, that type of thing. And it's that love inside of us that wants them to have the thing just right. Humanity's consciousness is designed to drive us towards beauty and communion. I mean, just that's a thing. And so our genome was endowed with that, really? I mean, that's incredible. That's just, I don't even know what to make of that other than to see that it's just so beautiful somehow or other. I'm sure we'll get this out to the world. I will.
I hope so. Yeah.
I can't wait to collaborate, maybe offline or something, or just say something and maybe get some of your hypno juice to pour on me, because I'm one of those cats that was never very good at being hypnotized. Got a busy head. I'll send you my chart. You'll be like, oh God, Dan, yeah, let's knock you out a little bit, see what happens.
Define head or ajna.
Yep. Channel of abstraction.
And this is the thing, it's like, I've done meditation classes and stuff as well. I know we're going to wrap this up, but like, it's, whenever you get that generic advice, this is how you meditate, this is still your mind. And it's not really easy. I would say not even possible if you have a defined head and ajna or ajna. I did 10-day Vipassana retreat, and so my mind was whizzing at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I had all these ideas that I couldn't write down because you're not allowed any pens or paper or stuff. So it's I think in just every aspect of life, for people who are understanding their human design, it brings so much relief, because it's like, oh, well, that's why I've struggled with that. I'm not actually designed. You can still do something like meditative with a defined head and ajna, but it's not going to be the emptying your mind. It's just not.
No, if anything, it's going to be the allowing the fullness without feeling the open root pressure to go do something about it right now, what I mean, or whatever, and all the other various opennesses. That's how I would see that, to let the mind do all that stuff. So one way or another, onward and upward. My goal in life is to create an army of readers. And I have to tell you, the last thing I'll say before we check out is I've been doing this a long time, about 17 years. When I started, it was a ghost town, the ghost town of consciousness in Western Massachusetts. And I thought I would never get heard. And then even just 5 years ago and 4 years ago, I was like, you know what? I don't think there's even, 400 truly competent synthesizing keynoting readers on the planet yet, and that may have been true, except right now, I think those numbers are changing like wildfire. And I think it's been in the past 4 or 5 years, 6 years, maybe.
Yes.
It's just started. Yes. We've been dreaming of that. The first round of peeps that had it even harder than me, dreaming of that, if they're even still alive, some of them. And then I come around, same thing. It's like, please, God, let it start. And now here you show up, and I think it's the greatest thing ever. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you, Danny. That was magical.
I felt it. It felt like magic, Sophie. That felt magical. Two right minds just saying whatever.
Yeah.
Thank
and that's
you.
the other thing with reading as well. Again, I like when I started doing readings, I was like, I have to have a plan and I have to have it all written down. And now it's like, no, just trust that if you don't know, it's okay. You can say I don't know and just like go with the flow. I think that's a real trip for anyone that's right-minded, especially if they're reading human design. They think they have to have this structure. And
Moana had that experience a little over a week ago, didn't you? It was a week ago. This Wednesday, today, it was a week ago, wasn't it? Or was it 2?
I want to say it's 2 now. Just
Either
like,
way, you had it and it was there and you didn't know and you had to read for someone for 2 hours and then
it
suddenly what happened?
didn't. It was not planning it to be 2 hours. I was planning it to
Uh-huh.
be like 1, and then I look at the clock. I'm like, oh my god, it's 2 hours.
She was reading to a 2-4 manifesting generator, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this creature should have either tuned out long ago or got roped in, one of the two, and you roped her in.
She definitely didn't tune out. She was leading
Right,
it.
right. So I'm with you on that, Sophie. This rightness is a magical thing, and I love working with the left-minded people who draw it from me and then go and make this magical stuff happen on top of that. It's a real yin and yang and a real
Yeah.
grace that we get to know about. So thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's
I was going to
interesting.
say, Danny, tag team out so we can have
Now, much
Sophie
love. Much
do her
love, Sophie.
lovely closing. All right, Sophie. So again, let everyone know what you're up to and where we can find you so I can drop your links again in the chat.
It's pretty easy. You can find me at my website, which is myfullname.com. You can find me on Instagram, and you'll pop the links in the chat there. I also do have some meditations on an app called Insight Timer. Sorry, I forgot to give you the link, Moana. But if you go into the app called Insight Timer, there's a free and a paid version, and just search my name, you'll find me in there. There's a couple of things there. There's a deep relaxation hypnosis and some other things in there. So I have already a parenting course, which is self-study
Highly recommend.
Thank you. I have, resources for parenting. I have an ebook, I have videos, I have like a mini course, I have a longer course. What I'm working on right now, which will be released soon, is another ebook. So it's more aimed for parents about, uncovering your core wounds and breaking generational patterns. There'll also be a shadow report. There's then one-to-one work you can do with me, which is a combination of coaching, hypnotherapy, and EFT. And then I have a training coming up in January, which is an 8-week human design training, which is helping you to see below the surface level of the chart so that you can combine that with your existing coaching or healing work and using human design as a map, much like I do with hypnotherapy.
Ooh, giving everyone a roadmap. So line 6 of you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. There was a question I had. Do you have any like pre-recorded hypno sessions for like type or authority?
It's coming. It's
okay,
coming.
I can't wait
I
because
have
I'm like
so
with your
many
voice. Oh my.
Yeah, it's coming, but it's been in the works, or the idea's been there for a while, but I don't like to rush things and put things out that are not good quality. So
Of course.
it will be released some point next year. I can't tell you when, but I would say sort of the latter half of next year, probably. I've got a ton of recordings I want to do that are human design specific.
I was going to say another thing to be at the edge of our seats looking forward to.
Yeah,
very exciting. Yeah, because I'm like, oh no, that voice of yours, Sophie, I want it on demand. Like,
yeah,
I can't sleep when we listen to this. So, that's very exciting.
If you want it on demand, it's going to cost you.
No, on demand meaning, you know what I mean. Like,
I know. Yeah,
that would be so.
Yeah, no,
neat.
I'm
Just like
working
put you
on...
in a little box and be like, Sophie, now.
I'm working on, like, it's really important for me with the 2145 to have lots of resources for people. So I'm working on like creating a lot of things like that are then affordable for people so that they can have things like that on demand. So there'll be type. I think there'll be authority. There'll be type, authority, and potentially profile lines as well.
Yes, we had a EFT practitioner come on, and she's doing an EFT book, and that's exactly how she broke it down. It was type, authority, profile. I mean, those are the big 3 anyway, and then everything after that is. Yes, it was. I was
talking
so
with her
lovely.
yesterday. Yeah.
Fellow Canadian. I only found that out like recently, and I'm like, I can drive to you. What? How have we not met up? This is crazy.
Fellow Canadian, but her family's from where I live, in Thailand.
No.
Yeah, it's funny with so many synchronicities. We were having a chat yesterday. Yeah, I'm looking forward to her Human Design Summit as well. I will be there.
I was going to be like, are you, or should I keep it shut because it hasn't been revealed yet? Well,
watch this space.
Okay. Watch the space. Ooh, so exciting. Amazing. So with that, friends, go check out Sophie's links. And the whole point of having lovely, amazing demos like Sophie's today is so you could go back and redo them whenever you feel the need to. And of course, keep coming and watching. Thank you for subscribing to our channel and watching us live. We appreciate it so much. And with that, tune in next week. We have another amazing manifester coming on, and she will be talking about mindfulness. So it's going to be another great one. So stay tuned for that. And with that, friends, thank you again for watching us either live or through the replay, and have a wonderful night. Take care. Bye-bye.